Hello viewers, good to have you here today. What do we have today for you? We have some likely JAMB past questions on government. Please settle down and let's go together. The first question we're looking at today is this. The Inspector General of Police is appointed by the executive on the advice of the Nigerian Police Council, Police Service Commission, House of Representatives, Senate of the Federal Republic. The answer to this question is B, Police Service Commission. They recommend an appointee to the executive, particularly the president, and then after the president appointed the person, he will present his name to the Senate for approval. Police Service Commission is the answer. The next question. A major problem associated with the Nigerian federalism is ethnic conflict, environmental pollution, boundary dispute, fiscal allocation. As much as all these, A to D, are problems facing the Nigerian system. But the major one at the moment is fiscal allocation. That is, how to allocate the generated revenue among the 36 states, the federation, that is the center, and of course the local government. If you have gone through this revenue allocation under federalism, several commissions have been set up in the past to find a way out on how to resolve this revenue allocation. Okay? Even going by the new structure of the current government, they are trying to restructure the system in such a way that more power will devolve to the states, and by so doing, more revenue will come to the states. If you also follow Nigerian story, you'll notice that there have been battle between the state and the local government, while the government is calling for what? Financial autonomy. That is, their money allocation given to them for the federation account should come to them direct, because oftentimes they are paying it to the governor, to the state account. And the governors knows how to manipulate the money for the local government. So I'm going to pick as a major problem for federalism per se as fiscal allocation. The next question. The 6 African members of the Nigerian Council were nominated by the Nigerian Council was the council introduced in 1916 by Lord Lugard when he became officially the colonial governor of the whole Nigeria. Okay? You know, was an administrator of the North before he eventually became the colonial governor of the whole Nigeria after amalgamation. Okay? That was 1914. So, he introduced Nigerian Council, and those 6 African members, they were nominated by the governor. The Nigerian Council was supposed to be like a lawmaking body, like a legislative council. Eventually, when what is his name? Clifford came in 1922, he stopped the Nigerian Council and changed the name to what? Legislative Council. Okay. In the Second Republic, the total membership of each House of Assembly was determined by the Second Republic was between 1979 and 1983, when Alhaji Shehu Shagari was the president, was the first executive president of Nigeria. Not the first president, but the first executive president. If you want to get more gist about that, you can check our earliest video where I made a clear distinction between who is a president, a ceremonial president, and of course, an executive president. So back to the question. Now, the membership of House of Assembly of a state or of a nation, like you know, for a state it's House of Assembly, while for a nation it's National Assembly, all right, is determined by the Constitution of the state. The Constitution specifies how many members represent each state, represent each constituency that make up either the State House of Assembly or the National Assembly. So the correct answer is the Constitution. The next question. Privatization and commercialization programs in Nigeria have, to privatize means, also we have discussed this also earlier under economics, right? On this video, you can check up for that. Now, when we say privatization, it has to do with government selling out its investment, its businesses is parastatus to private individuals who are not shareholders, privatizing. While commercializing means government still owns such businesses, but such businesses have been commercialized in the sense that they are not making profit, just like what a private business. So when these programs are put in place, what will happen? Increase public utilities, de-emphasize government ownership, reduce government revenue, encourage corruption. Of course, this is off point. This off point, okay? Yes, since government have done this, government will no longer be concerned to carry the weight of these businesses. It will reduce in a sense. But here, particularly, what this concept is talking about is ownership. So this de-emphasize government ownership. Likely would also be increasing utilities, provision of these services from these privatized and commercialized companies. But basically, the emphasis from our understanding on this question is ownership. So when government privatized or commercialized, it has reduced its ownership of that particular business. Sometimes in commercialization, it could be a partial, such a way that government is part owners. Even in privatization, government can be part ownership of such businesses. Okay? So let's pick B as answer. The next one. The fear of domination in the public service led to the fear of domination in public service led to the adoption of population as formula for revenue allocation. I thought revenue allocation has always been a problem in the federal system. Establishment of the Civil Service Commission, introduction of the National Presidency, establishment of Federal Character Commission. The answer is what? D. Federal Character Commission was introduced to checkmate the processes by which appointment are being made. It's a way of balancing appointment, so that not just one-sided. For instance, the current president, who is a Yoruba man, cannot appoint all ministers as Yoruba people or all service chiefs as Yoruba people. By federal character, is expected to appoint at least one minister from each state in the 36. Okay? So the answer is option D. In the Igbo political system, the most senior member of the Council of Elders is the Opera. Opera is said to be the most senior son. The meaning of Opera in Igbo land is the most senior son. So when we have every family is represented by its own Opera in the Council of Chiefs or Council of Elders, every Opera comes together. So when all the Operas from different families or different homeowners, when they come together as Council of Elders, the most senior Opera will now become the head of the council. Mind you, he has no executive power over the council. It's just like a ceremonial head. Obi is the king or the traditional title holder for Onitsha. Alright? Eze, also like a king for some other villages that operated centralized system. Ofo is a chieftaincy title in Igbo land. Alright? So the answer here is Opera. The immediate cause of the 1960 military coup Delta in Nigeria was nepotism, political instability, military ambition, corruption. The first coup took place in 1966. So 1966, January 15. That was the first coup against the First Republic, the government of Tafawa Balewa and Nnamdi Azikiwe. Balewa as the prime minister, Azikiwe as the ceremonial president. Okay? So the coup, the boys that planned the coup led by Kaduna Chukwuma Nzogu. Nzogu, what he said, the allegation they made was that the government was corrupt. In fact, after the coup, when we had an interview, was saying that their plan was just to remove the corrupt element in government and hand over power to what? To Obafemi Awolowo. That's what he said. Kaduna Chukwuma Nzogu. He won interview granted after the coup. Okay, corruption. Option D is the answer. The next question. The exclusive list is reserved for legislation by the, in a government, particularly in federal system, we have three types of lists. We have the exclusive, we have the concurrent, and we have the federal list. This topic has also been treated in one of our earliest videos. Please check out for system of government in the videos that were done earlier to get deeper explanation on this. So the exclusive list are the powers that's reserved for only for the word exclusive, special, only for the federal government. No state, no local government. State and federal will agree on concurrent lists, while federal and local, this with what? Local or regional, this with what? Residual lists. Okay? The participation of Nigerians in the Second World War created in the nationalist the awareness that, we are still under colonialism during the Second World War. Second World War was 1936, I think, to 39 to 45. That was what gave birth to the creation of a United Nations. Okay? Now, Nigerians, soldiers were drafted also, since we were under colonial master, then British, were drafted to fight alongside British Army, all right, that time. So what happened? Africans were superior, Africans were more qualified to rule, Europeans were not superior, Europeans were less active. They observed that the Europeans and the whites, they were, because before then, there's this mystic understanding, this ideology that the white is superior to the black, right? They're like special species compared to the black. And this inferiority complex that they went to the war with, by the time they got to the war, they noticed that the white got tired like the black. The whites, the blood, when they're shot, when they are wounded, blood comes from their body, just like the black. They noticed that they were just as vulnerable like the black, that the difference was just what the skin color. So eventually the mentality was that Europeans were not actually superior as we thought. And that is why really after the Second World War, you observe most of the African states under colonialism, the agitation for freedom, for decolonization was very, very high, immediately after the Second World War. So the answer is Europeans were not superior to the black, as it was thought before the war. The next question. Power that is delegated is exercised by devolution, directly, by cohesion, indirectly. When power is delegated, you know that it depends. If it's authority that is delegated, now it's okay. The person is using the authority that is recognized on behalf of the owner. And that will be what? Devolution of power, of authority. Okay? Authority also be devolution of power. But power itself is by force, is by threats. It's not by law. Are you with me? So, where it could be by devolution. Power could be by devolution. Devolution. Alright? We could pay answer for devolution for this. But if you ask me, I can go critical. If I want to go the other way, talking about power standing on its own, I could say by coercion, by force. Because the person who is exercising the power itself is exercising the power by threats, by sanction. People don't obey because it's supposed to obey. It's not legal. So when it's not delegating that power to, the person is going to use the power to, we have to use the same force or threat to carry out the instruction of the giver. But more than less, if you're looking at it from arrangement of power, political power, the power has been devolved from up, down, or from the owner to somebody else. Okay. Now, the sovereignty is acquired through, we have about 6 types of sovereignty. De jure, de facto, legal, political, regional, and what have you. So the de jure sovereignty is talking about the one that is acquired through a democratic process, electoral process, democratic process. So what is talking about democracy here? Law, grant, treaty, force. The answer here should be law, through the process of law, democratic process of the law. A. Okay? A group of people who live together under common law within a definite territory is what? Community, nation state, nation state. The answer should be what? State. Because what is a characteristic element of a state? The state must have what? A population, the people. Right? The state must have what? A government. And a constitution, a law to govern, and the state must be what? A geographical entity. So this is a state. It couldn't have been a nation, because a nation means a group of people with common history, common ancestry, and so what have you. Understand? Okay? So the answer is what? A state. Option D. The next question. Political socialization is associated with political socialization is the transformation, the movement, the transmission of your political culture from one generation to another. What is political culture? Your orientation, your belief about your political system. What's your political system? Your society. What do you believe about your society? And this belief is made up of 3 components. Most have gone through, we have done that too in one of our earliest videos where we discuss basic concepts in government. And at that point, I made emphasis on political culture and socialization. Right? Your culture is made up of 3 components: cognitive, affective, and of course evaluative. All right? So what are we saying here now? Socialization is the transmission of political values, transmission of your political culture from one generation to another generation. Option B is the correct answer. The next question. According to Aristotle, a form of government in which few in which few, okay, rule for the benefit of all. Few rule for the benefit of all. We call it what? Diarchy, aristocracy, autocracy, oligarchy. The answer is what? Aristocracy. Okay? When few people, the nobles, are ruling for the interest or for the benefit of all. It could not be autocracy, which means authoritarianism, which means what? Dictatorship. Okay? It couldn't be that, right? So answer is option B. But when you say diarchy, diarchy is talking about when you have two elements of government, all right? Civilians and military ruling together at the same time. We had this experience under Babangida regime when it was the military head of state between 1985 and 1993. Okay? The next question. Organ of UN that promotes voluntary cooperation among member states in diverse areas is the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice is the World Court, Hague in Netherlands. The General Assembly made up all the head of states of all the countries that make up members of UN. Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. The Security Council, that is the most supreme organ of UN, right? They have power for sanction. The permanent members, 5 of them, and of course there are 10 members that are elected every 2 years. So the correct answer here is option C, ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council. Okay? I hope you are getting value on this channel. Please subscribe to the channel and share the links with your friends so they can also get the same value you are getting. The next question, please. The main representative body of the United Nations is the Secretary Council, General Assembly, Treasury Council, Secretariat. The answer is what? General Assembly. Why? Main representative, all members are represented. We have about 103 members in the United Nations now. 108 countries, independent countries, that are members of the United Nations. And all the head of state represented them in the General Assembly. So it's the main representative, the main deliberative organ. Okay? But if the question is asking the most supreme organ, the answer is what? The Security Council. If the question is asking you the administrative organ, the answer is what? The Secretariat. Okay? If the question is asking you the organ of UN that monitored all those territories that were formerly under Germany before the Second World War, or that were taken over from Germany and put under trust territories to monitor them for independence, they mentioned Trusteeship Council. It has finished the assignment and is no longer existing for now, because no country again can be seen to be under colonialism. Okay? So the answer to this particular question is General Assembly. Very well. B. The next question, the AU differs from OAU in having, what we used to have before is OAU, Organization of African Unity, right? But it transformed, that's created in 1963, yes, 1963, I think May 25th or 28th, okay? But AU, it transformed to AU, I think in the 2002, yes, I think 2002, because I know the process started after the millennium in 2000 by Gaddafi making move and the then South African president, okay? Thabo Mbeki and Gaddafi of Libya, all right? Eventually, OAU transformed towards AU, I think in 2002, thereabouts, okay? Now, but the question is asking you, what can you say differentiated AU from OAU? Effective tools for judicial enforcement, no permanent headquarters, a minimum divergent views, no assembly of head of state. All these other three are there. But AU seems to have effective tools for decision enforcement. In fact, AU has what we call a united army for AU, for Africa, such a way that all the African countries can supply soldiers to make up that. They have uniform legislative assembly, one common one, So they have so many robust organs that makes the achievement of the goal and the aims and objective of AU to be more effective than that of what? OAU. So the correct answer is what? A. The next question. Under the Emirate system, the commander of the army is the Emirate system was a system that the Fulani people introduced in the north after Uthman Danfodio in 1804, when waged a war, jihad only war against the Hausa people and took over their territory and then disrupted their existing 14 Hausa kingdoms and replaced them with what? Emirate system, where we have Emir as the head. Okay, to date, the Emir is one ruling what? The northern people, the Hausa people. So under the Emirate system, we have some officials all right, who manages the affairs with the emir. Like we have the alkali. Alkali was one in charge of the legal system, the Sharia law. Okay, we have the Hakimi. Hakimi is also one of the officers. I think the Hakimi was more or less maybe the head of the local districts under the emir. There was second father. Second father, I think, was the one father means water. I think it's one that is in charge of the fish that the emir will eat. What the fish of the emir. Then we have Madawaki. Madawaki was like the chief of defense officer. So was the head of the cavalry. Cavalry there was known as army, was head of cavalry. We also have a person called Dogari. Dogari was head of police. So the correct answer to this is Madawaki, option D. The indirect rule system of administration was more successful in the northern Nigeria because, indirect rule system was introduced by Lord Lugard officially in 1914, and he wrote a book to defend it called Dual Mandate. All right, it was a system whereby the Lord Lugard appointed the traditional rulers to direct and manage the affairs of the people on the behalf of the British master. Okay, that system was successful, fully successful, totally successful with the northern people, because what the British master met on, in fact, it was because of them that system was adopted. Because what it met on ground was that the people were already subservient to the emir. They were obedient to the emir. The emir already had a strong grip of the people. So that's why it was so successful. It was also successful in the western region among the Yorubas, because the Yorubas also have kings, all right? And these kings, that is Obas, they have so much respect for their traditions and for their kings. So they also use the kings that they allow fear for you, to get the people, the Baales, to get the people to obey the masters. But for the Igbo people, it was a total failure. Because among the Igbos, there was no king, no central person as a king. Igbo had no kings. Igbo had a decentralized democratic republican system. So indirect rule was a total failure among the Igbos. Was success in the north. Why was it successful in the north? The people were mainly interested in being governed. No. Existence of an organized structure in the area. And that's the most correct answer. Option B is the most correct answer. Europeans ensured that the farmlands of the native, blah, 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 native showed it no. The answer was what? Option B. They showed that they showed no resistance to the British masters because they are already subservient to their kings, their traditional rulers, emir. And once you get the emir, they have gotten the people. So option B is the most correct. There was no need for D because B has already taken place. Okay? The next question. The main attribute of a state are, I tell you, we just mentioned that one of our questions we treated earlier today. The main attribute of a state: government, police, armed forces, population, territory, government, and sovereignty, federal, state, press. The answer is what? B. For you to say a place is a state, there must be a territory, a geographical entity, an area. There must be population, human being, people staying there. There must be a government that manages the affairs of the people. Okay? And there must be sovereignty, independence, freedom, no fear of external interference. There must be a constitution, a legal law that defends the state and protect the affairs of the people. So the correct answer there is B. These are just the elements, the attribute, characteristics of what? Of a state. A disadvantage of the one-party system is that, one different kind of party system. I think we have done a video on that on political party and party system. You can check up our files, you look up for it for details. We have party system, we have zero party or collegial system, we have one party system, we have two party, and we have multi-party system. Okay? So when we say there's one party, it means that only one party is officially and legally recognized, all right, to present candidate and contest for an election. It's suitable for a unitary system of government. Okay? It doesn't mean that only any other parties operating, but those other parties operating on the ground, they are not legally recognized. They cannot present candidate for election. All right? So, what is the disadvantage of this kind of arrangement? It emphasizes political differences. It makes accountability difficult. It negates freedom of association, delays making. The answer is what? It negates freedom of what? Association. Because in a democratic setting, people should have freedom of choice to go for this party or the other party. Are you with me? So it negates freedom of association. Option C is the correct answer. In the history of Nigeria, 1914 was the, I think I mentioned something like that before, was the ability to establish their rule over Nigeria, beginning of First World War, year Lord Lugard effected amalgamation of Nigeria, year railway system was completed. The answer is what? The amalgamation. The amalgamation of the Northern Protectorate and the Southern British Lagos colony merged together as an entity to form Nigeria. And remember that name Nigeria was designed by a lady called Lady from the Shore, taking it from River Niger area, River Niger, that big river in that Lokoja area. Okay? So option C is the correct answer. 1915 amalgamation. The next question. Which of these rulers resisted colonial rule and was deported to Calabar? If you are an historical student, you will know that it's King Jaja of Opobo, because he resisted the colonial master, the British master, when they came down to that part of Nigeria. Alright? King Kosokos of Lagos was not there, was not the one ruling during the British master, the Sumo, about the small from Lagos, and he gave up. He gave up easily Lagos to the British master when he came. No wonder they dominated Lagos and declared Lagos as their own crown colony. Abovaname of Benin also was not too much of a resistance to the British, like in Jaja for Pogo. Option D is the correct answer. How many states were created in Nigeria in 1967? Now, creation in 1967, that was when the first states were created. Before 1967, if you know the history of Nigerian federalism, state creation, we started with 3 regions as in 1960. Okay, 3 regions, the north, east, and west. By 1963, when the Republican Constitution was created, 1 more region was added, that's Midwestern region, was created from the Western region. The place we now called Niger Delta. All right? Now, because of the tussle between Yakubu Gowon and Odumogu Ojukwu, when he was talking about who should become the head of states after the military coup of 1967, all right, the counter coup. So, Ojukwu decided that he should be the head of state instead of Gowon, because he's senior Gowon in hierarchy, in military. So since there was no agreement and Gowon has been declared, so there was an Aburi Accord where Jen Ankara, the then head of state, military head of state of Ghana, invited them to a village in Aburi, in Ghana, called Aburi. And there was an agreement there that it should change from federation. Nigeria was practicing federalism. That we should change from federalism towards confederation. Are you with me? But when they get back to Nigeria, that agreement was not followed. Instead of following that, because the reason is that if the agreement has been followed, it means that these 4 entities, North, East, West, and Midwestern, will now become a semi-independent state. Huh? And at any point in time, they can break it, when they can secede, and there's nothing they can do. So instead of obeying or honoring the agreement as for Aburi Accord, Gowon decided to break the 4 regions into 12 states, created 12 states. And 3 days later, Ojukwu declared that the former Eastern region is now the state of Biafra. And that was the beginning of the Nigerian Civil War. 1967 to 1970. Lasted for 3 years, 30 months. Okay? So 12 states. You know, it was when Murtala Obasanjo came, they added 7 more states to make it 19 states. Babangida added 2 more states. That was the Edo and Delta. I think 87 thereabout, making it 21. And when later on, Abacha created Nemo to make it 30, and later another 6 to make it 36 states. So the answer to this question is 12 states. B. The constitutional forms with 2 levels of government is. 2 levels of government is. I think for me, the correct answer should be what? Confederation. Because the 2 levels in this confederation is what? The central and the component units, or the federating unit. But you know that in this kind of arrangement, the center is existed at the mercy of the components. Why? The sovereignty of such state is at the component. At any point in time, the component unit can break and secede, and there's nothing the center can do about that. I think it's a confederation. But I'm surprised when we have confederation, we still have confederate. I don't know why that 2 of them are here. I think this should have been federal. Maybe there's an error in this OBJ. These options. This should have been federal. This C should have been federal. Why this one is confederation? Because in the federal doesn't have to be 2 levels. Federal simply means division of power. Division or sharing of power between the central government and the component units. Right? In a federal system, you don't limit it to only 2 levels. No. It just says central and the component unit. Component unit could be regions, could be states, and could be local governments. Okay? Very well. So and that's why I'm not going for this. I'm assuming that there's a typographical error in this question, that C should be what? Federal, while D should be what? Confederation. It could not be unitary, because unity means what? Constitutional political power in only 1 level of government, just 1. While this is talking about 2. And federal cannot be limited to 2. Okay? Very well. So the Closest answer we can P is confederation, based assuming that this C is federal, not con. Okay? The essence of ECOWAS is to know why was ECOWAS created? What is the objective of ECOWAS? Bring political parties together, how? Foster interstate economic and political cooperation, of course. Emerging political event, expansion of scopes and power. The answer is option B. ECOWAS was created, Economic Community of West African States, was created so as to bring a kind of synergy, cooperation among the states within the Western Africa. Okay, economic and politically, let them be cooperating. Not unity anyway, but cooperation. Okay, very well. B is the correct answer. The next one. The head of government under the 1979 Constitution is the 1979 was Second Republic, right? That was when, for the first time, presidential system of government was introduced to Nigeria history. And I told you that Alhaji Shehu Shagari became the first executive president, right, of Nigeria. Not the first president. The first president was Nnamdi Azikiwe, but the first executive president was Shehu Shagari. Okay, so this system stated, because the system we were operating before this time was parliamentary system. Before the military truncated the system. In parliamentary, you have two leaders, ceremonial president and prime minister. That was Azikiwe and Tafawa Balewa. Okay, but by 1979, we changed from parliamentary to one presidential system. So the head of government here was the executive president, which is the president. Okay, but before that time, the head of government used to be prime minister under parliamentary system of government. Okay, so the answer to this question is option A. Option A. Okay. The next question. The characteristics of the civil servant which prevent its officers from addressing the press unless the letter is known as impartiality, neutrality, anonymity, personality. All these, apart from this D, all these are characteristics of civil servant. Okay? A civil servant is impartial. It's expected to serve any government that comes. Alright? Whether civilian or military. Because they are professional, they are experts in their field. They are supposed to be neutral. They are not supposed to be partisanship. They should be neutral. They are not supporting of the political power, APC or PDP or Labour. No. You should be neutral. But the one that is answerable to this particular question is anonymity. Being anonymous means you can only see, you cannot hear them. They are not allowed to make a legal or a statement about the government without being authorized to do so. So that's why you can only see them and not hear them. That's the language. Anonymous. They are anonymous. Okay? Unless they are directed, they are not expected to make any press statement on behalf of the government. Option C is the correct answer. The granting of internal authority to the regions came under which constitution? Regions were introduced in 1946 by Otto Richard Constitution. Alright? And when that was done, the houses of assemblies were given to the regions. What were the three regions created then? North, East, and West. And House of Assembly were given to them. In fact, the northern area was given House of Chiefs. So we had ratio 2 to 1 to 1. 2 houses for North, 1 for East and West. House of Assembly, House of Chiefs for the North. Only House of Assembly for East and West. So the regions were given internal authority by Richard Constitution of 1946. Option B is the correct answer. The next question. In the year 1911, who argued most representative system deteriorates? In the year 1911, who argued most representative system deteriorates towards an oligarchy or patriarchy? Robert Mitchell, Adolf Gescher, Adolf Hitler, Edmund Burke. The answer is Robert Mitchell. He was the one that was saying that the few oligarchy, when they continue to rule for a long time, eventually they become what? The strong hand of the oligarchy. They may likely become what? An authoritarian, a dictatorship. Huh? Just like what happened to Adolf Hitler in Germany. Okay? So, Robert Mitchell. Alright? A is the correct answer. In the 18th century, a new wind of development blew over Europe, and development was referred to as, that was the evolution of industries. industrialization. You know, if you follow Karl Marx's mode of production, where he discussed the evolution of the society, when he said we started from communalism we grew to what? Feudalism, from feudalism we grew to what? Capitalism. And from capitalism, that capitalism was in the 18th century, which gave birth to what? Industrial revolution. From capitalism we grew to socialism, because there were troubles, quarrels, disagreement between what? The bourgeoisie and the proletariats, the have and the have not, the masters and the slaves. So there was a need for government to intervene, and that was socialism. And eventually it said, if socialism continues for a very long time, it may lead to what? A state of what? Communism. All right? So the answer is what? Industrial revolution. In the 18th century, industrial revolution. All right? The next question. One major merit of the unitary system of government is the, what is unitary? I just mentioned that earlier, when there's power concentration at one level of government. That's unitary. Concentration of power, political power at one level of government. What such happen? What do you think? What is the major advantage? I'm not talking about if it's disadvantages. A disadvantage would be that such person at the level, at the center, will become autocratic. Huh? Too powerful. But now they're talking about a merit. Is it most democratic? No. Because democracy should give room to freedom. It's cheaper to operate, perhaps, eradicate corruption, eliminate tyranny. I think one major merit of the unitary system of government is that it's cheaper to operate. There's no duplication of offices. It's just straight and direct. It's cheaper to operate. The legal right to exercise power in a state is known as authority, sovereignty, cohesion, influence. That's what? Authority. What is the nature of authority? A legal right to control the affairs of the people. Authority. Authority. A. Bills passed by legislature usually requires the approval of the following except governor, members of the representative, monarch, president. If you check one of our earliest videos on this channel, we also did an extensive discussion on the organs of government, legislature, executive, and judicial. Please look for search on our videos, check the one that have the title, the organs of government. We did extensive discussion on these three organs, and we broke down the legislature. The legislature, they don't actually make law in the real sense of it. What they do is what? They make bills. What is a bill? A bill is a proposed law that after passing through certain stages of lawmaking and assented by the president becomes what? A law. Okay? And there are processes of making these bills. These bills will pass through certain process from the first stage to second stage to committee stage to report stage to third stage and of course to final stage in the House and then given to the president for assent. So a bill is liable to become a law after passing these stages and handed over to the president to assent. The word assent means to approve and sign it to become what? Law. So the approval is given by Mr. President, the head of state, as the case may be. Option D is the correct answer. In a democratic system, majority vote, legal sovereignty shouldn't be unquestionable. Electoral, I don't understand this. Legal sovereignty shouldn't be unquestionable. Should not be questionable. It's not shouldn't be. This is contradiction. This negative, this negative, negative, negative. It shouldn't be. This will be should be unquestionable. That should have been the proper answer for us. But since there's negative, negative, then we cannot be an answer. Let's see the next one. Electoral college is not necessary. What's electoral college? Electoral college is a group of people that are elected by the electorate, the people, to go ahead on their behalf to choose the final representative. It is not necessary. This is what they call indirect election. It is not compulsory. You must operate indirect election in democracy. All right? It's not compulsory. Minority vote, but majority rule. How can minority vote and majority be ruling? This is also another contradiction. If it has stated majority vote, minority rule, maybe you could consider. But I think the closest answer to this question is majority vote. Why? In democracy, majority carries the what? The vote. That's always been the slang we use. So A is correct answer. That type of sovereignty that thrives on legitimacy is external sovereignty, vested in any form of government, legal sovereignty within the people's mandate. The type of sovereignty that thrives on legitimacy. When it said legitimacy.
Hi, I'm sure you enjoyed the content you just watched. To see more episodes as that, preparing you for your oncoming exams, smash the subscribe button on this channel right now and visit the playlist that we've made for you, covering over 50 types of different exams.